Alright, so I know it's like a bit quick, and who knows, it may even be too soon, right? Because it hasn't even been like an hour yet since your other brother got up out of here too. But Zeus, my boy, my home slice. Now both the seas and the underworld are lacking a ruler right now, dog. You know, I got credentials, you know what I'm saying? Thank you to our final patrons, Sinus Lancelot, Praise the Sun, Strawbones, and Aaron. Now, before we hop into this breakdown of chapter 64 of Record of Ragnarok, please leave your own on the chapter in the comment section down below, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below, where you can support for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive content, early videos, and more. Now, let's get into the review. What's up, guys? I got the pencil here, and here we are to chapter 64 of Record of Ragnarok, which is known as The Return of the King. Oh, come on now. They knew what they were doing with that. Like, who wrote that? Was it Tolkien? I forget who wrote that. Who wrote that darn? Someone sue something. All I'm saying is someone sue something. But regardless of that, let's hop right into the chapter itself. So we do get to see we are where we left off. Where Kin's whole arm is on the ground right now. And like, I know he's on like 15 different types of adrenaline, obviously pumped up on so much hype that he can probably barely even stand as it is. But like, I can't even imagine your own arm just on the floor next to you. Like, forget the pain and like the, who knows, the hysteria you would be in, like all that, forget all that. Just imagine you're standing there and you look like just out of your peripheral vision, like you look to the left just a little bit, and you see your arm just laying there. That's got to be trippy. Like, I know it's got to be painful, obviously, but in terms of like the insanity of that, it's just so weird because like it's everything else is still on the arm. Like, notably, I don't even think the volume faded from that bad boy. Like, it's still there. He hypothetically, like, after the battle, he could just like pick that bad boy back up, slap it on. Like, it's in perfectly good condition. He could reuse that bad boy. He don't need to pull a Shiva. Like, they weren't burned out of existence. He could just get some stitches. I don't know. But it is amazing to see that even Heimdall is like, whoa. Alright, this human a bit different. He's standing through pure willpower right now. And to be fair, once again, considering this is a death match, Kin only has one choice: to stand up or die. So he chose to stand up. So I put respect on his name for that. However, it still is crazy to see, right? Like, throughout all of this, despite what he's gone through, like, and he's lost, you know, it literally cost him an arm, but he still got both legs. He's still smiling. And that's impressive. Once again, I know, superhuman characters, superhuman manga, bada big, bada boom, but still, it's moments like this that makes you really respect a character like Kin. And we do get to see that all of humanity is like, whoa. Just like Heimdall, they're like, he may be built just a bit different. Like he may not be like the rest of us. Don't mess with that boy. He is not one of them. Like, straight up. And I don't even blame them, right? Like, some people are calling him a fool. Some people are impressed. But they all come together and they say one thing. They're like, come on, Qin Shi Huang. Don't lose to some measly gun. And one, they low-key spit. But two, I feel like, actually, I don't even blame them. I was about to say, what about Hades' display has been measly? But honestly, thinking about it, at least based on all the fights we've gotten so far, at least visually, Hades has been like the least impressive of the gods. Like at Thor, he was wielding lightning and a much bigger hammer. Look at Zeus. Zeus was shape-shifting, transforming, stopping time. Well, they didn't see that. But essentially, Zeus was a demon on demon levels. Like, he was just different. He wasn't... Also, another one of the cases where, don't mess with that boy, he's not one of them. Poseidon. That man was making it rain with himself. Like straight up, he was just everywhere and blitzing everywhere. That's pretty impressive. He looks like hurt. Sure, he was boring. But that man was transforming left and right. That boy had 15 different forms up in his back pocket. Call him Goku. You take a look at someone like the Buddha. he had a shape-shifting weapon and he was going kind of crazy. And obviously he got that crazy transformation at the end. Look at Hajun. Hajun was over the moon. Like that man was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, transforming his own body parts, shape-shifting, morphing, doing all that. Look at Shiva. That man literally danced the dance of the destruction of the world. Like, obviously he went crazy too. So I guess I know in context it isn't like they aren't just calling Hades measly because of like his visual performance maybe, but like in the context, if they were saying that, I actually wouldn't even blame him, because in terms of just physical displays, Hades has been kind of the most lackluster out of all the things we've gotten so far, which is so ironic. Like, I know I really enjoy this fight, but visually it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's the weakest. I don't know. I'm definitely gonna have to think about this. I'm gonna reread the whole. I may have to just reread the whole manga again, get all the fights back in my head fresh before I talk about that. Because just off the top of my memory right now, this is the least visually stimulating fight because it's just been stabs and swings. But enough of that. We hop back and we see that all of humanity is once again roaring together. They're like, "All right, Ken, we tied up right now, boy. We gotta get you. We gotta get the lead up real quick." And of course, we see that Ken. He's like. I love how, once again, in a very similar way to a lot of humans so far that have experienced it, like Adam had a moment like this. I'd say even, well, it was a much more deranged way, but Jack had a moment like this. Sasuke had a moment like this, where whether because the crowd was cheering for them or because they were on the back foot, like everything became clear. Like all distraction is faded away, and there was nothing but the human, their opponent, and their weapon. And you can see that with how Ken, he closes his eyes and he just hears it and he feels it. He hears the voices of the people, all of his people. And I love the shot, right? Because you see Ken in the panel above, stacked above all of his people who are raising their spears to him, just out of respect, out of reverence for the king. And I love it how we've cut right to the next panel. And while the Ken in our time, the Ken in our reality is missing an arm, bleeding, dying as he stands, really. In his mind, he is back to probably the happiest time in his life. When he was a child, learning how to wield the blade. And he is perfectly at peace. And I think the contrast there is, it's this, I don't know, like, on a writing level, I think I'm not sure if that's the thing with doing live reactions. I'm not sure what I mentioned in live reactions or what I mentioned in reviews, but a big thing that I've been thinking about this fight, even if it is probably off the top of my head the most underwhelming visually, in terms of both emotionally and just pure writing wise, character wise, and on like a just general narrative scale, like the writing of the fight itself. This is easily one of my favorites. I don't know why. It's just like, well, I do know why. Like this moment here where we see what truly makes Ken a king. The humanity in him. The child within that went through all that suffering, that accepted all that pain, that even when standing there on the brink of death, he is at peace. For this is where he stands as the responsibility of the one who calls himself a king. The greatest king, no less. It's just heat. It's just heat. And I love how, like, it's a quiet moment in the roaring conclusion to a battle. And I think the bravery to do that when you're at such a high, like, peak, high energy, high climax point, takes some discipline, it takes good pacing, and it takes a good understanding of how your character would act in the narrative. And this perfectly fits. So that's great. However, what I also love about this is the reaction of Chun Yun, because she's looking on her baby, right? Like it's still, it was 69 pages of chapter, and like it's still, it's the best backstory. Like still to this day, like in between chapters, when I'm just thinking about regular Ragnarok in terms of like ranking things, Shiva's backstory in Kin's backstory, they're just fighting. They're fighting for supremacy, and I'm literally not sure who's gonna win. I'm literally gonna need to reflect on both fights, how the backstories fit into the context of their respective characters, how their side characters work into their actual fight. Like, there's so many things that go into making a backstory, and I feel like the mangaka, whenever they feel like hitting, they just hit. Because, like, I'm not gonna say Hades' backstory was mid or anything like that. It was just like, unlike with Kin, it didn't tell us anything we couldn't glean already. Like, Hades' backstory is perfect for him, and it's perfect for what he represents, the idea of brotherhood and the role of the eldest, and how that role of the eldest translates to a king in the way of the eldest looking over all others and taking care of them no matter what, at the expense of one's own body, mind, and soul, which is exactly what Hades did. And that's great, and it fits into his own version of the kingly narrative, where the sacrifice of oneself. See that? It's so. By the way, you don't like button is free, and the subscribe button is free too. Like, that was completely random, but I was just thinking about it because they're both free, and I really appreciate if you hit them because it would help me out with. I'm sorry, they'd help the video out, and then also help me out. So I really appreciate it. But the idea, I get it now. I think I literally get it, because Kin's whole point is that the pain of others siphoned into him is what makes him a king, while Hades believes, oh my, Kin takes in the pain of others, and Hades prevents pain of others at all. Both in their way view it as proper kingship, right? Because Kin believes as long as he takes in the pain of all his people, he can truly understand them and be a proper king, while Hades believes that even allowing pain upon your people would not be the right of a king, and thusly one must do it all themselves, putting their own blood and soul on the line, which is why he infuses his blood into Desmos to make it a more powerful weapon. Man, is this? I gotta be just grasping for straws, bro. Like, how is the writing isn't this deep? Is it? I'm not just like actively having a whole revelation on Mike right now, right? I think I am. The writing in this fight is man, whatever. But what I do love is, once again, we get to see that Chun Yoon is essentially just looking at her baby, right? Like, she has her actual, real biological child standing by her, asking, but like begging her and wondering, like, wait, is our king, right? He's not gonna lose, is he? And you can tell just by, like, I don't even have to turn the page like to tell how deeply invested and like how the complicated emotions one must feel, right? Because I think the reason both Shiva, I'll talk about Shiva's backstory until I think I do have to make a whole video on that backstory. I made a ranking video, but I talked about that so long ago, and I still love that backstory. I think I love that backstory even more now, though I did that ranking video. But I think what makes Chun Yoon so much better when it comes to, and compared to all the backstory characters we've gotten so far, that we get to see in the current narrative, right? Because we got to see the woman from Jack's backstory. We got to see Hercules' friends from his backstory. We got to see, obviously, the other gods from all the other gods' backstory. Buddha and Hajun's backstories were tied into one another. Like, there's so many other characters that are existing in the modern day and do, like, comment on their fights. But I think the reason Chun Yoon and Rudra work so well is because they are so deeply intertwined into who the fighters are today. A lot of other characters are mainly just accent pieces to their respective fighter. Like, they're there to maybe say something about them. Meanwhile, Rudra and Chun Yoon are fundamental reasons of why both Shiva and Kin are the way they are. And that's why I think her emotions just hit more different, because she's likely the one who taught him pretty much everything. She's likely the one who taught him how to fight. She's likely the reason he beat Chi-Yo, that demon from that was mentioned once and we just haven't gotten back to. Like, sure, all of his arts are named after it, but whatever. She is essentially the root to what Qin Shi Huang became. So seeing her worriedly look after her other son, the person she saved from despair and inadvertently saved herself from despair with, it just hits different. It's really, really good. I wish I had a better descriptor. I wish I could explain it better. And once again, who knows? Maybe just a whole video, a whole scripted video. Maybe I just have to write it out before, like, because wow, it's great. However, we do get to see that she couldn't even really answer her real son at first, because she's just thinking back on everything, all the things she did in life with him. And then she's realizing, like, in this moment before it all ends, right? She's just remembering and understanding the fact that what stands before her today, years upon years upon years after her death, all he did, all Huang went on to become, was because of the promise he made to her. She is the root cause of the man who stands and fights for humanity today. She realizes that. And in a way, it is both the ultimate reassurance and at the same time the ultimate guilt. And you can see that she doesn't even answer. She's like, let's see this the whole way through. Our kings, the greatest kings, battle. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love the hope, the faith, yet the understanding that he stands against impossible odds. She can't give certainty. She can't give absolute confidence, but she can give her faith. And I think that's great. And we get back into the battle itself, and we see the blade of an emperor against the spear of a god, and the two men wielding their weapons, smiling at each other. And it's like, you think I would get tired of it at this point? Because it happens with pretty much every fight. The only notable exceptions where one party does not gain respect for the other, I'd say, is Poseidon and Sasuke. Poseidon never gained respect for anybody. He was just a demon. And the only other notable exception is Hajun. Hajun didn't gain respect for anybody. He just hated everything to the very end. So maybe I should be tired of, like, every single one of these combatants being like, yeah, that's my equal, that's my boy. But I don't know. It's like, enemies to friends is one of my favorite things ever, just in fiction in general. Like, call it stereotypical, call me simple, call me easy to manipulate, but I appreciate it. And I love when it's done well like this. Like these two men, for as long as this battle has been going on, from the very start, they knew how this was going to end. One of them was going to end up dying, and they both had preconceived notions about each other. But how does that old saying go? You don't know a man till you look at him in the face of death. I'm pretty sure that's the exact wrong way to say the phrase. Something about that. But the way these two are looking at each other, knowing that this is their last, this is the end, and one of them is going to go after all that they've done, I know it's gotta be crazy. I don't know. I love the panel where these two are just looking at each other and respecting each other. I think it's great. I don't know. I appreciate it a lot. And ironically enough, despite Huang literally being so far behind at this point, down an arm, just failed, and Hades, while he's bleeding everywhere, he still has all of his limbs. This fight feels like almost supernaturally even. Like, neither is looking upon each other with like Kin isn't looking on Hades like, this is unfair, this is cheating, this is dumb. And Hades isn't looking on Kin like, how does this human think he's going to beat me? They have a mutual look of respect. And I think that's great. And we do get to see that essentially the odds, no matter how the fighters view each other, still isn't in Kin's favor, right? We see the Valkyrie of Sasaki worry for her sister, and Isami Kondo just straight up says it like, yeah, he's good as dead now. The fact that he's standing is pretty much a miracle in of itself. He's probably going to go down. However, shockingly enough, after the last chapter, him being a hater, Soji Okita says, hey, wait a minute. Ooh, maybe not. Because his eyes, they're saying a different story than the one we're trying to tell. He hasn't given up yet. And it's very, I like it. It's a common thing that like only warriors of certain calibers understand each other, but I think it's beautiful, or very important at least, that it wasn't someone like Sasaki or Soji who in this moment of great despair doubted their fellow warrior, their warrior of Ragnarok, if you will, but it was one of the outsiders, one of the standbys that ended up doubting him. And even Sasaki comes in and he's like, okay, so he's got a plan, huh? Like these two people who know they're going to fight for their right to live and continue to exist, they're the ones that have faith in the one who stands for them right now. And I think that's great. It's little things, little details, little attention things there that I think the Record of Ragnarok manga is very good at, or the writer, because I think 3 people work on it, 2 artists and 1 writer. So the writer's snapping, going crazy, going stupid, and I love it. I think it's very easy to slip up on details like that, and even then, I wouldn't say that's like a slip up. That's not something that's going to ruin the chapter forever, and I'll just, but it is a minor detail that, when done well like that, enhances the narrative and its characters rather than just keep it stagnant. And also, speaking of enhancing the experience, the like button is free. Also, the subscribe button. Please, if you could just click both of those. If you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button. And if you haven't liked the video, click the like button. I greatly appreciate it. However, we do get to see that while Hwang is still smiling and ready for battle, Alvatir is obviously like, wait a minute. I get it. You're on your last legs, and obviously because of that, so am I. But what are we going to do here? He literally has both arms. You only have one. What's the plan, dog? And we see Hwang's plan is to use the heavenly handed defense again. And obviously, we saw what happened to his hand the last time he tried to use that. So there's a little bit of his hand over there, and there's a bit of his arm over there, and like he's a little bit everywhere the last time he tried to use the heavenly handed defense. And the funny thing is about the heavenly handed defense, it requires a hand. And considering he doesn't have one hand, the other one's holding a sword. Where's the hand coming from? The bottom of his foot? Like straight up. I remember first reading it, and I'm like, huh? Like, what's the plan here? And I literally had the exact same reaction of Alvatir, who was like, huh? And and I know she literally wants to say, like, but with this state you're in, that handless state, like you need a hand, buddy? Like, do you want me to do it for you? I don't know. I love it. But the great thing, I love it. It's a quick flip. It's a very quick flip, because this happened just last chapter, right? But I love the flip on it, right? Now that Alvatir is unconfident and uncertain and stuff like that, if you remember last chapter, she's the one that said, hey, you're a king. Be firm. Talk to me how you want it. Be about it. Don't just say about it, be about it. And Ken flips it on her, where she's like, trust me, I'm a king, and I'm saying about it, and I'm going to be about it. Stay with me. And I love how Alvatir has a moment of like shock, but then immediately flips it. Like, man, you really are just goated. And I think it's great. I think it's great. And notably, it's interesting that she even brings up the idea of giving up. But then again, I guess she just meant giving up and die. But like, considering the state that they are in, aka he dies and she dies, I'm sure she would even bring up the prospect of giving up. You got to fight till your last, else you're just gone. However, one of my favorite things that I do love here is how she takes a stance opposite to him. She is his left arm and his right hand. Like, I like it. It's a byproduct of using the Valkyrie more. And that's something that I hope the rest of the fights do from this point on. Like, if you're going to have these Valkyries, use them. Use them 100 million trillion %. Use them as much as you can. Because these characters, just like the main fighters, this is it. This is usually their end. Only Sasaki's Valkyrie has been, like, graced with the opportunity of still being around and mentioned. That and Jax. But we've been, compared to how much we've been seeing Sasaki and Soji, like, Jack is a darn rarity. He's like a souffle. Like, he's great, he's sweet, and he's to the point, then he's gone. So obviously his Volune partner, it's hard to see her anyway. So using someone like Alvatir to this display is gonna make her, she's easily the most memorable of all of them. Obviously, because I actually know her name. Obviously I'm reading her name, but still, like, All the other Voloons were pretty much non-characters, except for maybe Raiden's and Sasuke's, and they're still very forgettable. So I'm happy that Alvatir strikes her pose opposite to the king, and these two decide that this is their last. They're going to give every last bit of themselves to this final push. And you can even see how her power alongside his infused into the blade, because wind starts to gather around. The beams of light start to focus in on everything, with Kin directly at the center, and the blade begins to glow even brighter with more intense energy. And I love how Hades facing down it feels weird saying Hades facing down death, as he is the Lord of the Dead, but Hades facing down what could be his very death smiles and laughs and says, "I consider myself proud to be able to fight you." And I know it's so common. I gotta get over it. It's not heat. It's whatever, you know? These guys, they learn to respect each other over a fight. But this is Hades, right? Like, it's one of the big three. As much as he's been commonly characterized in modern media to be just a generally nice and misunderstood dude, which I do like, you know. I read Lore Olympus. It's not, I'm not gonna make a scene out of anything like that. Like, I'm fine with his new interpretation. He still is one of the big three. He still is a leader of a whole third of this world. While he may have been the most underwhelming deity visually, he is still Hades, Lord of the Underworld and King of the Dead. For him of all people, someone who has watched over and simply glazed through the lives of who knows how many, every single human in this stadium that has died, is one of Hades' own people by pure technicality. But out of all those millions upon millions, really billions of people that Hades has seen in his existence pass through his realm and stay there for all eternity, he doesn't give the honor of respect to any of them, except for one. The one man that forced him to draw out the mightiest of blades used to slay the Titan itself. The one man who stands as a representative for the group of creatures that slayed his own brother. The one man who stands before him defiant in the face of the Lord of the Dead. Qin Shi Huang is the only human to get Hades' respect. And I think that's something great. And I love how he draws his blade back. The same seriousness as always, Desmos at hand, ready to meet Qin with his all. And we see that with this, everything stopped. Both the gods and mankind. Every eye upon the arena could sense this next clash would be the final clash of Ragnarok Round 7. And honestly, as great as and as amazing as that is, I love how you can see across everyone, gods and man, they're all looking and waiting with bated breath. It's not just Hades that's viewing Qin as a true equal that he's about to use all of his power against despite his state. Despite Qin's look and his appearance of being one-armed, broken, and dying as he stands, everyone from his own people to the people of the modern day, to Jack, to his Volund, to the swordsman, to Thor, to Loki, to Odin, to Adamas, to Zeus, everyone there is silent, and everyone there acknowledges that this would be the end. This is what will decide it all. Even Nostradamus and Buggy Boy look on with anticipation. And you can, the tension is like, and it's weird, right? Because I've already read the chapter. I know how it ends. You've probably already read the chapter too. You know how it ends. But even now, with knowledge of how it ends, with knowing how this goes, I can tell you all the pages that are going to happen after this too. The mangaka did such a good job on every level, from building up the suspense, to building up the hype, to establishing the tension, to paneling the tension, ironically enough, in the artist's case, that I got sucked right back in at very least. Like, I'm on the edge of my seat right now. Like, not actually, because I would flip my chair, but Still, the ability to generate that kind of tension, and I think it's just tension. I think that's just the word. To do that with pages, non-moving pictures, is incredible. And we get to see that, as always, the first to make a move would be the king of the underworld. And one more time, he lunges in with Ichor Eos. And I love how, in a way, you can almost tell that this is everything because of how much raw destruction and energy is just pulsing around Desmos. Like, you can see it from the winds that are coming from the thrust of the spear to the earth that's shattering, being blown apart by the stab. Like, all of Hades is being put forth here. This is everything. And you can see that Kin understands this too, right? Because even the narrator straight up admits, like, a fearsome thrust from Desmos, loaded with all the ichor Hades could give. This is all of Hades' divine blood that he could manage to spare, pumped into his weapon. And I'll admit, how this is done is something that completely evaded me. Like, when I first read it and I realized how this made sense, I was blown away. I was like, I literally had to slow clap it. Like, straight up, that's impressive. But what also is impressive is that the like button is free. So is the subscribe button. So I really appreciate if you hit both of those. However, the thing is, we get to see that in Gear's mind, and what assumedly would be everyone else's mind, right, is that you have to dodge that. Like, there's no way with one arm bleeding out, the state Kin is in, there's no human way that he could deal with that and not just get skewered and shish kebabbed immediately. Like, this has to be it if he doesn't dodge. And you can see almost for a moment, right, Hades' eyes are all blacked out. He's just all into this stab. This is his everything once again. And you can even see it for a moment in Kin's face. Like, there's just a moment of realization, right? Like, this it isn't, it very likely isn't, but this almost seems like the most powerful attack in the tournament up to this point. The narrator even straight up declares it the fully powered attack from Desmos, from the king of the netherworld, which would kill with a graze. Like, this is it. This is hype. This is the end game. You can see it in Kin's face. However, just as the narrator says that, we learn the king of men without hesitation. And I love the juxtaposition, right? Like, it's the same position, it's the same angle and everything, pretty much, just a little bit higher. But the king of men, Qin Shi Huang, he meets the tip of Desmos with his own blade, and it creates this gorgeous ripple effect. The energy is just dispersing around him in the heavenly hand of defense. And you can see that where the realization of death overtook him maybe not half a second before, a smile of pure understanding and absolute peace comes across his face. And you see that just barely, same as before, and actually no, not same as before now I think about it, in a different way than before, Huang caught the attack. Before, what made the previous attack different, what cost Qin his arm, is that he tried to clash with it. In the end, he simply could not use his human strength, even combined with that of a Valkyrie, to overwhelm the king of the netherworld. But what he could do was meet the king of the netherworld halfway. And you can see by how the tips touch perfectly. And we find that this is Chiyo armor form, heavenly hand of defense, infused with the attacking blade of Chiyo offense form. And it's this beautiful shot where the energy is captured and just radiating and radiating and radiating. And we see that even the men who have fought and will fight gods are looking upon Kin and just assuming he's insane. Sasaki and Soji, they're just like, he's a fool, he's going to be crushed, he's going to die. And you can see Hades even steps into it. Like, he's like, this is it, I have to. He buries his foot into the ground and pushes, and you can see in that perfect glass radiation of energy, cracks begin to form, the ripples, as the strength of the king of the underworld gets too intense and overwhelming. But just as it does, we see Hwang roar out. And plot twist, it wasn't a roar. All of humanity looks on, and they were ready for Hwang to lose. But that roar, which could have been the signal of death in another time, was simply an inhale. And with a puff of air, it comes in contact with Desmos and kills all the force behind it. You can see by how the air spreads out. The moment it makes contact with Desmos, it just ripples out. The air is blown and gone. And suddenly all the force is dissipated. And they're amazed to see that, wait, he used Tortoise Ripple? He did it? And everyone else is even more confused. He's like, wait, Desmos had a star? It's a weapon. And Hades, realizing that he has essentially committed himself to this, with the assumption that that option was off the table, notices that he's in too close of a range. He's stepped in. He's locked in. And now with all this force gone, but collected in Kin, he now has full and absolute control over all that divine and human power. And for a moment, we cut into Kin's head. Let me just read. I have not forgotten, not for an instant. My life began from the end. That was when when Mother showed me. A king is one who arises from the end and brings about a beginning. And I love how, with this, as Hades is forced to acknowledge that he was outplayed, the energy that he had put into Desmos flows away from him and towards Kin and into his blade. And we see Chiyo, sword armor form, and all that force immediately goes straight through the blade, just in that center point where Kin intercepted Desmos. His blade begins to pierce, and you see Hades cry out in shock and confusion as Desmos is torn apart. And you see Kin breathing heavy, nearly on the verge of death, taking all that energy. And I love it. Shi, Hwang, Guard, and Yan cut. Chunyan, his mother, taught him the move that would slay a god. And you can see, I love it, like, we don't, in this panel where we see the inverse of the panel of Desmos thrusting in, we see Desmos being thrusted through by Kin's blade as he has this manic smile on his face. Once again, perfectly juxtaposing Hades' mad thrust towards death. Like, they are essentially perfect opposites in this moment. And we see how everyone, no matter who they are, man or god, Valkyrie or human, they all look on in shock and confusion. From Brunhild to Gear to Thor to Loki to Zeus to Soji to Sasaki to Isami to both memory and thought, Odin, Ares, and even Hermes himself watch as Desmos shatters. The blade piercing through the heavens and ending up lodged within the chest of the King of the Dead. And, like brother, they will not go down that easily. So Hades, with a blade in his chest, declares that nothing less could come from a man he respected. But it's already over. Hwang swings his blade and cleaves directly through Hades. And Hades realizes and finishes his statement. Nothing less from a king. And we see as Hades falls back, dying, he realizes internally as he stares up towards Adonis and Zeus. The art's just too good. Like I feasibly don't get how one can draw this, bro. How do you make Zeus looking sad feel so emotional? Like Adonis is a cyborg and Zeus is a hollow face. Like I don't know how you make it so emotional, but you can like just looking. I could remove this panel, remove all context, and just go up to a random person on the street and be like, "Hey, what's the emotion behind this drawing?" And I think they would very easily tell me despair, sadness, anguish. You can see it all in their eyes as their eldest brother dies before them. And we see that Hades just straight up admits he could not make good on his vow. And in the end, he failed as an elder brother, and he failed as a king. As he holds the remains of Desmos in his hand, he dies and fades away, not with a smile on his face, but with a sad, sad look, asking for forgiveness. And man, I'll admit, I was praying on Hades' downfall from the start, bro. The moment we got that Kin backstory, I was like, Kin must win right here, right now. There's nothing Hades can do to convince me otherwise. And I got what I wanted, but at what cost? And we see, as Hades fades away to particles, Kin is still on the verge of death, and Heimdall goes to announce, like, the winner of Record of Ragnarok Round 7, but before he can get it out fully, Kin starts to fall, possibly signifying that he's going to die too. Heimdall even stops, and we see Chunhyang scream out for her child. But no. The blade is planted in the ground, and Kin stands, bleeding, steaming, and most certainly in need of healing. But all of humanity looks upon their victor. And we get some final words from Kin. I am grateful that I could speak with you, King of the Netherworld. No, my friend. And he puts a hand to his chest, with all others doing the same, bowing to the king of the... It feels so weird, but the dead king of the dead. And we see the winner of Ragnarok Round 7 is Qin Shi Huang. Hades versus Qin Shi Huang. Match time 12 minutes and 57 seconds. Deciding move Shi Huang. Guard and Yan cut. Winner Qin Shi Huang. And that was Pete. Now let me address the one thing. I mean, I've been seeing it kind of here and there. I think a lot of people got it explained to them already. But one thing I have been seeing is like, how did Desmos have like a star on it? It's a weapon. Like, what the heck? Aren't only like people supposed to have stars? Does he see stars and everything? What does that mean? I think, at least if I could rationalize it, I think the main reason that Desmos had a star is because Desmos was just an extension of Hades at that point. He had fused so much of his blood into it, and we know his blood enhances weapons, but obviously it still is him. And that's why the chapter goes out of its way to point out that he had put in as much eco as he could. He had put in as much of himself into the weapon as he could. So the weapon naturally had a star too. And I think the reason that Huang only noticed it on the brink of death is because he also had that conceptualization. Like, that star may have been there the entire time, but it took him breaking his boundaries, breaking his knowledge, in order to realize that the star in front of him was this. I was about to say something so stupid, but essentially it took him a while to realize that that star was there. But once he did, he knew that this was his only way to win. And I think this is beautiful. This does multiple things that I think are good for the narrative. One, it puts the humans in the lead, meaning that essentially these next couple rounds could pretty much go anywhere, because we are definitively at the halfway point through Record of Ragnarok. There are only 6 matches left. Remember, this is a round of 13, and I'm not sure how many chapters this was. Hold on. So they ended on chapter 64. When does this battle start? I'm gonna go all the way back to chapter 55. Let's see, that's Nostradamus. So this chapter, this fight was less than, darn, this shit. Yeah, hold on, let me look at this. Scrolling. Yeah, this chapter was, this fight at least, was only about 8 chapters long. Because 56 to 64. So yeah, there was only like 9 chapters. It wasn't even a full year for a fight. So we may have at most, if every, like, let's say we even get a year for a fight from this point onward, which I doubt, we probably have about, at max, 6 more years for Record of Ragnarok, if there's not like some plot twist midway through. Like maybe at the midway point we're gonna switch it up, because like the humans were never supposed to be in the lead. But essentially, multiple things done. Humans are in the lead, could lead hypothetically more to that whole rebellion plot, now that the Greeks keep getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Like they lost 2 of the big 3, so obviously that's going to leave a big hole in their pantheon, maybe for Odin to come in, you know, alley-oop and get up in there, you know what I'm saying. And it also just puts things into perspective for like pretty much every single fighter there is going to lead to some great reactions from Adamas and Zeus and stuff like that. It's going to lead to great reactions from pretty much everyone. We're probably going to get a beautiful interaction between Chunyan and her son, Kinji Hoang. Like, I'm excited to see that. So much good can come from this, and I'm super excited. This was, darn, a 13 out of 10 chapter. Like, once again, the author just didn't miss. The author didn't miss. The artist didn't miss. Nothing missed. The only thing that missed was Hades. But even then, he landed his ticket to the afterlife, or his ticket to non-existence. So he won too. Like, everything in this chapter is great. However, those are my thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You can support for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.